we kind of wanted to go back to old school. Walt Disney, when he would introduce a movie.
David, it's a joy to speak with you. Thank you so much for the time.
Yeah, you bet.
This is such a fascinating film. It really is. How did it come to be?
Well, the one of the executive producers, who's the head of the production company, Mark Pierce, and myself were kicking this idea around of what about going back to the whole point of Christmas, the Christ in Christmas, and what would it be like to unpack that and show from an authentic way, almost like a historical way of what that might be like. And then when the concept came up of Kevin and we were able to actually get him, it was like, whoa, here we go. And it's been a wild year. So we literally are still, I don't know if you saw the rough cut, but we're still finishing the fine cut now. And and this all happened in this year. So it's been an amazing ride.
I think it's really interesting too. Like we've seen films about this story, the Christmas story before. But this is a unique blend of documentary and recreation. And it's a very fine line to walk. And I think that's what makes it so interesting is this context here. And of course, like Kevin's name is in the title of this. I want to come back to the film here in a second, but if I'm correct, I think Kevin Costner presents the first Christmas. And you said when his name got to be involved. So did you approach him? What was the thinking behind bringing him in, and what was his response?
Yeah, so we did approach him in the early stages, and he was, those his opening and all of that is his words. And that was one of the things that was important to him,
Hmm.
was connecting this to his roots as a kid and growing up in the Christian church. And yeah, so when he said he was interested and got involved and was involved in improving the script, improving the cut, and of course shooting with him. So there was no arm bending. He was in full support all along, and that was a real thrill. Addressing the format, we kind of wanted to go back to old school. Walt Disney, when he would introduce a movie, you remember those days, or,
Sure.
or
Yeah, yeah, of course.
seeing, you know, and going, what would it be like to let's watch a movie with Kevin Costner, you know? And that was kind of the approach. And even the technology that we used and kind of bringing the audience behind the screen, so to speak, and saying, let's take this journey together. And then having experts weigh in almost like a podcast where they would give us insights and unpack it in such a way that is hopefully informing and engaging the audience. But the story is so compelling. This young couple who are suddenly thrust into this grand adventure to protect and take care of this son of God in the most brutal world. I mean, just that premise alone, is just unbelievable when you think about it, and knowing that it is true is just compelling. So we really tried to keep our true north, the scriptures.
And you know what I think is so interesting about this too is how it fleshes out the text. There's conversations surrounding circumstances and situations and cultural issues that, ultimately, when we look at it, we've got a few chapters on this story, but we know it so well. And I was wondering, in your mind, like, do you think that all of these new information is the wrong word, but additional information helps flesh out our understanding of the story, or like, how does that bring it to life?
Well, there's been things that have been added to the story and attached, and some of them quite innocent. And people would go, "Well, why does that matter?" And I think it all matters. And if it was, for example, the wise men, we often see them with the shepherds kneeling before Jesus at his birth, and in fact, they came 2 years later. And who were they, these magi? And why is that important? And I think just the fact that they were drawn, these people who have a different worldview and a different belief system so far away and so determined to make it there, that just that fact alone just speaks a little bit more to a color and perspective of who God's character is, you know, that he is welcoming to anyone, whatever your belief is. And it doesn't matter how long it takes for you to get there. It doesn't, none of that's there. He's there, he's waiting. So there's a little nugget there of another aspect of God's character by just nudging it back towards historical accuracy, then hey, it's more convenient. Let's put the three kings in the same nativity. you know. So there's things like that that we hopefully will be insightful to people and encourage people to go back to the original text themselves and make discoveries themselves.
So what I'm hearing is that we should take them out of the creche and move them to the shelving unit on the other side of the
yeah.
room. Is that no?
Put them in the garage.
In the garage, right? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but they get there just a little bit longer.
yeah. Was there anything in this journey that particularly surprised you, or something that really brought the story to life for you in a new way?
I just love the grid of looking at Mary and Joseph as a young couple in love. And I've often seen portrayals of Joseph as this stoic guy who's kind of obligated. And I'm like, wait, no, no, no. God chose him too. And I got to think the character of God, the God that I serve, would want parents that loved each other, that was a loving family that he was coming into. And I just thought, let's look at it through that lens because I think that's accurate. And so then when you put the whole concept of a young couple in this brutal world having now this baby, and when I had my first child, my wife did, of course, I remember the nurse handing this baby to me and putting us in the car. And I'm like, is this legal? Like, we don't know what we're doing. And I had a car seat, and I drove super slow back home, and we had the crib waiting and grandma waiting and all that. But what about thousands of years ago in a dark cave when infant mortality was through the roof and mothers died in childbirth all the time? And now, well, this is also the Son of God. And it's like, oh my, what an awesome responsibility to have for this young couple to now take care of this infant while there is a maniac named Herod trying to assassinate their infant boy, their baby boy, and the Roman Empire and how brutal it was and sickness and all of that. So I really hope we can bring a little bit of that color into the story for the audience and they go, whoa, I never really thought about that. I've been looking at that nativity set for a while and projecting onto it my own cozy perspective. So
I really appreciate the chance to chat with you. Thank you so much for the time. It really is a
uh,
fascinating film.
you bet. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.
You too, man.